Yo, what is up everybody? The settings video is finally here, fully updated, going over Nvidia settings, and I'll be going over some Windows settings as well. So let's get straight into this. I'll mainly just scroll through everything if you're curious to what I use, but I will point out the important things. I know people like my colors, so this is what I use for my color profiles. Got my brightness turned up a little bit to 60. Camera effects, this is the important one. You want literally everything off or set to the lowest except for reduce sprint camera bobbing. You want that one on. And I think that's pretty much it for the important ones in accessibility, but I'll just continue to scroll through all my settings if you are curious. A lot of settings double up in other tabs, so it is kind of annoying, like hold toggle. I just went through that. So I might accidentally go through something twice. Capture area outline, you want this on. It'll show you the capture area on the floor, which is helpful. Infantry aiming sensitivity, this one's for controller. This is the one for mouse and keyboard. I use 25 at 400 DPI. 400 DPI is not on here for some reason, but all you have to do is just double 800, so I use 50 cm. And then when we get to roll camera and landing roll, this one, when you turned it off in beta, what it would do is not play a landing roll animation and you would take damage instead. But I think it was useful because you would always have your gun out, so if you did jump off of something and there was enemies there, you may take damage, but at least you can shoot your gun. Now when you turn this off, you play a different animation, and I'm pretty sure it does increase the height you can jump off of something without the animation playing, but the animation will still play if you jump off of something. I don't know what the height is, but I don't know why they changed the setting. So like sometimes I had it happen on stream. I jumped off of something, I did an animation roll, and I died because I jumped into a group of enemies. And I mean, it's probably not smart regardless, but like at least I would have had a chance to shoot back if it was beta. So I don't know why they even changed this. So now you're like pretty much always forced into an animation. It's just weird. Peek type I do only up because I think peeking the corners, it just feels really bad in this game. But again, if you know me from Battlefield 4, I also had leaning turned off and I only did peek type up. So I just didn't like the leaning in those games. Vehicles, I literally don't use vehicles, and then that's aim assist. But that's sensitivity, control settings. Now in here, uniform infantry aiming, I have this on. This was also called uniform soldier aiming in the previous Battlefield game, so it is the same setting. I recommend having it on. When it comes to coefficient, this defaults to 178. I have mine at 133, and I recommend also trying 0. Literally just try all three of them, 0, 133, and 178. They all pretty much just drastically change the way your aim feels, but for me, 133 feels the best. Sensitivity, we already went over that. Field of view, I use 115. And then the rest in here is nothing really special, just personal preference settings. I don't touch any of my zoom senses. Yeah, that is it for this tab. Yeah, vehicles I just don't use at all. And I'll go through my controls now. UI keybinds. And then you want mouse raw input, you want this turned on. Onto graphics now, I have set to custom because I have everything turned off as expected, low or off. This is just going to give you the best performance possible, so I just recommend turning everything low and off. World brightness, I have it up a little bit. Sharpness, I turn it up a little bit, it just looks nicer to me. Advanced, resolution scale 100, want these off. Low latency I have enabled. You could do enable plus boost, but I think enable just feels better, and that's just what I use for every single game. Anti-aliasing, I have it off, and then the rest of these I have it off. And then performance overlay, I have it set to simple. But if you turn this on simple, it's not going to look like mine on the top left because I did some console commands, which I'll get into later. Field of view 115, vehicle max, weapon field of view wide looks the best in my opinion. Motion blur and camera shake all on the lowest or off. I'm pretty sure I said this, turn this on earlier, and then these three settings right here you want off. My aspect ratio is 16:10. I use 1680x1050. I do this because it feels the best for me. I use stretch res. This is preference, but for me 16:10 feels the best, way better than 16:9 and 4:3. Desync you want off. HUD motion, you want that off, so it's just your HUD's just not moving around. This filter you want on. It improves the visibility, so you want this turned on. Advanced HUD settings, horizontal HUD padding. Basically what it does is just gonna move everything to the center of your screen, and that's what I like because I don't have to look that far when it comes to checking my ammo or looking at minimap. Minimap size large. In beta, this used to be a slider. The slider maxed was large, but still this is not big enough, and I don't know why DICE made the minimap so small. This is literally half the size of my Battlefield 4 minimap, and in Battlefield 4 I can make my minimap bigger if I wanted to. So I really don't know why they're making you use such a small minimap, but I have mine set to large. I recommend it. All of these settings are preference. Interior zoom, this is, I'm glad they added this because in beta this was automatically turned on, so when you enter inside of a building it will automatically zoom in, so you can like no longer see the outside. So I'm glad they have this. I think you should turn this off. Now we get to these three settings. These three settings used to be sliders. View distance on foot, this is like how zoomed in it is, 160. Now in beta this used to be a slider, and I would have this set to 50 because in Battlefield 4 mine is set to 50, so obviously I'm going to copy it. Now for some reason on release compared to beta they removed the slider and they have three set values, and the lowest value is 160, which is more than 3 times than what I was using in beta. I do not know why they removed the slider and force you to use these set values. It makes no sense at all. Not only can you customize this more in previous Battlefield games, it was literally in beta. So I don't know why they changed this, but 160 I recommend for foot. I feel like it's already zoomed out enough. And then for vehicles I recommend 300 because you're just gonna want to be able to see everything. Compass I have turned off because I don't need a compass for multiplayer. Then HUD icons, again this is all preference, so you should test it yourself, but I will say objective icon opacity zoomed, you want this 0 so that if you're trying to shoot someone and the objective icon is on your reticle, it's not as distracting. But one thing I will say though is 0 does not mean off. In every other Battlefield game, when you put this to 0 and you would ADS on a objective icon, it would literally be invisible, and that's how it should be. But in this game for some reason it's still very visible, and I've had moments where an enemy is behind an objective icon and I'm trying to shoot him while ADS'd and I miss because I can't see my reticle because of the objective icon, and the enemy's also getting blocked by the objective icon. So I don't know why 0 doesn't actually mean 0. In literally previous Battlefield games it did, but I would recommend even more putting this to 0 so you're not getting distracted by the objective icon when you're trying to shoot people. When it comes to friendly icons, I have it turned down a little bit for zoomed, so I'm not super distracted by them. When it comes to revives, I have it completely turned off because I don't want revives when popping up when I'm trying to shoot people. Squad is exactly the same. Enemy icons, I maxed out the scale because I want to see the dot as big as possible. Neutral is like the objective. I would just test it yourself. This is preference, but I do recommend turning when zoomed on 0. Crosshair, this is just completely preference. Oh, infantry crosshair projection, you want this off so your crosshair doesn't like move around. Hit colors, this is what I use. And that's it for graphics. Audio, again, this is just personal preference, gonna be different for everyone. I use war tapes. I feel like maybe it might help with the footsteps. I don't know. Footsteps are pretty much impossible to hear. They need to do something about footsteps. And honestly, there's just something weird about them. There's times where I will hear people and I don't know how I hear the person because like there's so much going on around me. There's like people running around me, explosions happening, people shooting, and somehow I'll hear the guy that's like trying to flank me. But then there's other times where there's absolutely nothing happening and someone runs up right behind me and I don't hear anything. So the footsteps are all over the place and they need to be looked at. System. Nothing really special. Minimap. Yeah, we already went over that. So this gameplay data sharing, you want this on if you actually want to see your stats on tracker.gg. If you have it off, they won't pop up, at least for me. This is where scoreboard ping is and network graph if you want to like see hit reg. And that is it for the in-game settings. Now it is time for the out-of-game settings. So if you come to your documents folder, come to Battlefield 6, settings, I have the game on Steam, so Steam for me. Open your ProfSave profile, and you come all the way down to weapon DOF. You can control F and just search this, but come here and just literally turn this off. This adds blur to your weapon, so just turn this off. Now, if you come to the directory where you have your Battlefield 6 installed, and you make a user.cfg, I'll put this in the description, but this is what's in my user.cfg, and this will run every time you launch the game. And these commands right here are how I got my FPS counter on the top left. But one thing you need to change is these two commands, because this is the X and Y offset. So for my resolution, it's the X is 1475 and my Y is -50. But if you use a different resolution than me, you're going to have to change this for your resolution. Now the world render, this is what makes the shooting range really dark, and it doesn't make it dark in-game, just the shooting range and the menus, but this does give you an FPS increase, especially if you are GPU bound. These three commands are just strictly motion blur, making sure all motion blur is off. This is just another depth of field command, making sure depth of field is off. And now these are the commands that actually gave me a pretty good performance increase, especially in my frame time and in my 1% lows. Now I have heard people say that this makes their 1% lows worse. So I think if you have a really good PC, you probably don't need to use these commands at all. And it's also good to always test stuff out when you actually do try it. But for most people who don't have that good of a PC and they are having performance problems, this will probably help you out. So these two commands, you have to put your CPU cores in. I have 8. These two, you can just keep them 0. And then this final command, this is for how many threads your CPU has, -16. So you need to put whatever your CPU is for these commands. And then make sure that you set these two commands as your resolution in game, whatever it is. I do not know. I want to say 1920 is like in the 1600s, I think. I could be very wrong. But whatever resolution you are using, you have to change these commands, or you can just delete these commands if you're fine with the default FPS counter in the top right. But I will have all of this in the description below. Onto my Nvidia settings now. First up, my 3D settings. I have a lot of these turned off and I recommend just copying them, but I'll go over the important ones. Fixed refresh rate for monitor technology. You want that because you do not want to be using G-Sync. OpenGL rendering GPU. I have my GPU selected, but I don't think it matters if it's on auto selected. But when we get down to power management mode, you want maximum performance. Preferred refresh rate, you want to pick the highest available. Shader cache size, I recommend 10 or 100. You could also do a limited. I don't like it on unlimited, but I recommend 10 or 100. And then when you get down to texture filtering quality, you can set this to high quality and it'll make your game look better and maybe even improve visibility. But I do high performance for the FPS. What you could do is put it high quality here so your other games are high quality, and then come to the program settings and just change this for Battlefield 6 to put high performance so you get more FPS, and then VSync you want off. Moving on to change resolution, I just basically use native. I use 360 Hertz. I came down here and put my dynamic range to full. Color settings, digital vibrance, I just upped it by 20. Adjust desktop size and position. I have it set to GPU because I use stretch res at full screen. If you don't use stretch res, you can just use display. G-Sync, you want it turned off. Just like V-Sync you went off, you want it turned off. And then lastly, color settings, I came to advanced and I put it to full. All this other stuff really doesn't matter other than, you know, you want G-Sync off and the few things I talked about in 3D settings. But that's it for my Nvidia settings. On to my Windows settings. First Windows setting, game mode. You want game mode turned on. I'm pretty sure this is just on by default, and I'm pretty sure everyone just knows you want game mode turned on at this point. So you want game mode turned on. Now, if you come to System, Display, Graphics, you open this tab up and come to Hardware Accelerated GPU Scheduling. For me, this makes literally every single game I play perform worse, so I have it off. Now, this might be different for your PC. Some PCs actually benefit from this. So you need to actually test it yourself and see how it feels. But for me, I get a significant amount of FPS, especially in my 1% lows. My frame time doesn't spike as bad. It just makes my game feel a lot better. But I have mine off, and for me, literally every single game performs better with this turned off. Now, if you come back to where the game is installed, there's something I want to point out. A lot of people used to do this. I don't think so much anymore. If you right click the .exe, go to properties, go to compatibility, a lot of the people used to do disable full screen optimizations. And I just want to say, don't do this. Every single game I've done this just makes the game run worse. I can feel it. Not only can I feel it when I test it, I have lower FPS, my frame time is worse. So just don't do this. I think this is like slowly going away and people are not doing this as much anymore, but I just want to put that out there. Just don't turn this on. It just makes your game worse. And for the last setting I want to talk about, come over to Device Manager, come to System Devices, come down to High Precision Event Timer, right click it and disable it. So what this has done for me is stabilize my frame time a little bit more and also give me more FPS in the 1% lows. It's only helped a tad, but it still helped. And in other games, this actually like significantly increased my performance in those areas. So you might actually get a bigger performance increase than I did, but this has literally no negative effect. I've done this on multiple PCs and everything's been fine. And if you do, for some very odd reason, actually have problems, just come over here, right click it and just re-enable it. But you literally shouldn't have problems. I've never seen any negative effect from disabling this, only positives. That's it for the video. If you did enjoy it and it did help you, please leave a like and subscribe. Peace.